ميقرم يقراته مطيوة يديدة شلام علوخن الرابع بغداية ونديون أموخن إديوم جداهلو مادة تيد إكس مملي بتهاوي بوت لشانة سورة خالشانة مشكزمة خاعمة مشكزمة. I am sure you did not understand a word of that unless you are Assyrian or you have Assyrian friends. The purpose of this, I just greeted you in the Assyrian language, is for you to have the opportunity of hearing the music, the melody, the sounds of this beautiful, ancient, yet endangered language. My name is Nineb Lamassu. I am a linguist, and I specialize in documenting the Assyrian language. I have dedicated a large part of my adult life in writing, editing, publishing in the language, and more importantly, as an academic, documenting the language on its various dialects. Today, I will speak about who the Assyrians are, very briefly, succinctly, and what is the Assyrian language, why is it endangered, and what can one do, or we do, to fight against this endangerment. Well, who are the Assyrians? The Assyrians are an ancient and indigenous people. Their original homeland is spread across 4 modern states: Iraq, Turkey, Syria, and Iran. Because of persecution and massacres and genocides, there is a huge Assyrian diaspora also in the West. In Europe, for example, Germany, France, Sweden, Australia, New Zealand, and in the US, for example, Chicago is known generally as the new little Nineveh. The modern Assyrian language is, of course, indigenous to Iraq, Syria, Turkey, and Iran. It is the oldest continuously spoken language in Iraq. Although it has lost much of its prestige, yet it's still, I say prestige because I'm sure many of you know that in the ancient, it was the lingua franca of the ancient world. Yet it is still spoken by the Assyrians, and vestiges of this language are still found in dominant official languages of Iraq, let's say Arabic and Kurdish. Not only has the classical and standard modern Arabic lexicon borrowed abundantly from the Assyrian language, but the colloquial Iraqi Arabic is full of such loanwords. Let me think. Mazgoof, which is a famous Iraqi dish, the name actually has Assyrian etymology. Another good example is hassa. Now is again from the Assyrian hasha. This is the case with Kurdish too. According to Shade, who is a specialist in the Kurdish language, an authority, I may say, Kurdish agricultural vocabulary has borrowed extensively from the Assyrian language. He says, and I quote, "The Christian minorities, i.e. Assyrians, also possessed superior agricultural skills. Kurds who have taken over their villages are often not capable of maintaining or repairing the terraced mountain plots and complicated irrigation systems. This would suggest that Kurdish vocabulary would include many loanwords, particularly from the languages of the neighboring Christian, i.e. Assyrians." End of quote. Thus, Shade's authoritative Kurdish English dictionary, Ferhanga Kermanji Ingilizi, attests to the Assyrian etymology of many such agricultural vocabularies. In fact, outside the agricultural vocabulary, even the terminologies associated with animal husbandry are full of such loanwords. What comes to mind, for example, is Zoma and Beri. They are, again, of Assyrian etymology, Zoma and Bethriya, respectively. Now let's come to the nomenclature. What is the language called? Borrowing from anthropology, we know there is etic and emic term. One is what the people, the natives, apply to their language, and what is the others call the language. The Assyrian generally refer to their language as Surit, which is really an adverbial form of Suraya, Soroyo, which is to say, Suraya Suroyo has developed etymologically from the ancient Asuraya, meaning Assyrians. That's why you will find the Assyrians often referring to the languages of their neighbors adverbially. So for an Assyrian to say, I speak Kurdish, they would say, I speak Kurdit, which means Kurdishly. Now, the Ittic term, which is used academically, is Northeastern Neo-Aramaic, which is a recently coined academic term, a rather strange and unpleasing term to the native speaker's ear. The language is endangered. Yes, indeed, it is. According to UNESCO's Atlas of Endangered Languages, the Assyrian language has been recognized as a definitely endangered language. One scholar has actually gone as far as saying that the language is bound to die in this century. What makes this language endangered? Well, one particular contributing factor is the ongoing massacres and genocides that the Assyrians have been subjected to. Starting from the 1842 massacres of Badr Khan Bek, 1933 massacre of Semele, which was committed by the Iraqi army against innocent Assyrian citizens, and which, I may add, remains recognized and apologized for in Iraq. And most recently, the ISIS attacks on the Assyrians in Syria and in Iraq. An example, 34 odd Assyrian villages situated along the river Khabur in Syria were forcibly evacuated by ISIS when they attacked them. And now, as a result of that, there are hardly any Assyrians left, the original inhabitants, in these villages. They have almost all sought refuge in the West. And scientifically, speaking as an academic, we know a language is not to survive in the diaspora outside its natural habitat after third or fourth generation. Another thing is, according to Nabi, the Middle East has been infected with language chauvinism for the best part of the 20th century. And in Iraq in particular, the suppression of the Assyrian language started only a year after the establishment of the modern state of Iraq. That's it, 1932. That brings us to the Iraqi Constitution. The early Iraqi constitutions did not recognize but Arabic as an official language, and then they made slight improvements where they gave priority to Arabic, and then they recognized Kurdish, but not legislating any legislations where they were granting the Assyrian citizens much language rights. Hornberger asserts indigenous languages are under attack all over the world and are subjected to seemingly irresistible social, political, and economic pressures. Yet there is also accumulating evidence that language policy and language education can serve as vehicles for promoting the vitality and stability of these languages. Something positive there. Therefore, let us talk about what are the Assyrians trying to do to fight this endangerment in light of inadequate policies and legislations in the countries that they were born at, where they are indigenous to. They are exploiting the advances made in technology. There are many apps now teaching the kids how to speak the language. And in fact, one particular project is Hirge Online, which means lessons online, which is a virtual school aspiring to become a virtual university where anyone, anywhere in the world can attend these classes and learn the language as long as they have internet connections. And in Australia in particular, the large community presence of a large community there has managed to establish schools running on national curricula, yet managed to squeeze the Assyrian language there also. All this is great. All this is very welcomed. But this is not enough. What is needed to reverse the endangerment of this language is genuine government policies and legislations, both here, since we are here, both in the KRG and in the central Iraqi government. We are, for example, in dire need of legislating and establishing a special commission consisting of language experts in the Assyrian language. The core duty of this commission could be to establish state radios and televisions, broadcasting in the language, founding educational institutions where the language is taught to the people. Another important factor which is also needed is to amend the current constitution and recognize the Assyrian as one of the official languages in par with Arabic and Kurdish. Now, I don't mean in areas where they form a majority. Let's face it, that's becoming harder in line of, especially after the ISIS attacks. But we needed to be recognized in par with Kurdish and in Arabic. In another word, equality is not enough. What is needed is equity. Furthermore, for an indigenous language to survive, according to Nettle and Romain, it can only do so in a setting where a minimal number of users, ideally around 100,000 speakers, living in a compact and secure environment. Thus, if the Assyrian people and the language are to survive in their indigenous homeland, we are here, Iraq, they can only do so within an area prescribed to them. However, as Nabi asserts, this would require a commitment on the part of the Iraqi government to expand ethno-linguistic recognition to territory. Now, before I conclude, I want to show you a 20-second long video of an informant whom I recorded in the summer of last year in Sulaimaniya. I was told he is one of the most fluent speakers of the Assyrian dialect of Sulaimaniya, which is highly endangered. Now, I was trying to elicit basic lexical terms from this informant. In order not to influence my dialect, to influence his, I asked in Arabic or in Kurdish. So I asked him, what is dhaw, light, which is a very simple lexical item used every day. And you can see in this short video how he struggles to answer it. Or maybe not. Well, basically, he stares at me, and I've cut the video short in order to fit within the limited time I was given. And then he turns around and says, I don't know. Can you tell me what I should be saying? If this does not bring it home for us to fathom and understand how endangered this language is, I really don't know what would. But now, in conclusion, I really want to pose a question on your behalf. I ask on your behalf, why does it concern me? Why should I care that the Assyrian language is endangered when I'm not an Assyrian, nor do I speak the Assyrian language? Well, if we subscribe, and I should believe that we all do, to the notion that with the death of every language, an entire culture dies, and every culture that dies is part of our civilization dying, then we should fathom the fact that cultural diversity is as important to human domain as biodiversity is in the kingdoms of plants and animals. Both are essential for our survival. What we learn through the lenses of other cultures helps inspire and create our own. Tawdi Sagi, Spas, Shukran. Thank you.